Good morning. Welcome, trustees, honored guests, faculty, alumni, friends, and family, to the 2010 commencement exercises of the University of the Arts. Now let me first begin by asking you to join me in acknowledging the class of 2010. Now, students, or should I say almost graduates, we're going to have plenty of opportunities to cheer for you this morning. So I'm going to ask you to do something now for me. I'm going to ask you to join me in welcoming here to our home, the University of the Arts, and more importantly, to say thank you to the people who are here today to celebrate with you. They have been with you every step of the way these last 4 years, and for many years before that. You wouldn't be here without them. So, class of 2010, I want you to bring the house down for your parents, friends, brothers and sisters, grandparents, everybody who helped you get here. Last year, at this time, when I addressed our graduates, we were in what seemed to be the darkest hour of a global recession. At that time, I spoke about nerve, about the combination of creativity, courage, and confidence needed by the artist in times of challenge. This year, the mood has changed. Prospects have improved, recovery, like spring, has begun, and green shoots of hope and promise are emerging from the hard winter ground of recession. Like those spring tendrils that betoken the end of winter, the recovery is still in its infancy and is fragile. And thus our mood is one of uncertainty. Colored with hope, true, but still uncertainty. And in some ways, the uncertainty that we face now is even more challenging than the crisis we faced a year ago. In moments of crisis, we bear down. We focus on survival. We do what must be done, and we derive a kind of strength from it. It's when the crisis is past, but before stability is returned, that uncertainty prevails. And in this uncertainty lurks fear and anxiety. And these live inside us, not outside. They threaten to undermine us in ways that external challenges cannot. But my topic today is not recession or politics, or certainly not financial prognostication. Instead, I want to ask what, in an historical moment of uncertainty, can the artist contribute? And what should the parting challenge issued by a university devoted to the arts be to the young men and women preparing to venture out into that uncertainty? As I was musing on that question, I came across a poem that helped me to focus and clarify my thinking. The poem's by Richard Wilbur, two-time Pulitzer Prize winner and former poet laureate of the United States. The poem is called Worlds. It was published in 1987. And it refers to Alexander the Great, the conqueror of the known world, and Sir Isaac Newton, the physicist and philosopher. And it goes like this. For Alexander, there was no Far East, because he thought the Asian continent ended with India. Free Cathay, at least, did not contribute to his discontent. But Newton, who had grasped all space, was more serene. To him it seemed that he'd but played with a few shells and pebbles on the shore of that profundity he had not made. In Wilbur's imagination, Alexander is the restless warrior, compelled to subjugate all he knows. Cathay, or China, he knew nothing of, and so he was saved from despair by his lack of knowledge. Newton, on the other hand, knows the boundlessness of the universe. Indeed, he knows that what he knows of this boundlessness is limited to the metaphorical equivalent of a few pebbles and shells. And yet he is more serene than Alexander. I like Newton's serenity. I like that he is at peace with the enormity of the unknown that is all around him. I like that in the face of that unknown, he is not afraid. He is not discontented or disheartened by the prospect of manipulating the edges of the unknown, because he knows that by doing so, he comes to understand the structure the laws of that immensity, not to map or to conquer it, as Alexander might have, but to make it meaningful, and thus to denude it of the terror it holds. Now, it may seem as if I've gone rather far afield from my starting point, from that state of uncertainty in which we live today, and from these young artists who sit before me. I don't think so. In a recent collection of essays and interviews with artists about art education, the painter Jeremy Gilbert Roth, who teaches at Art Center in Pasadena, was asked, "What's the most valuable lesson you learned in art school?" His answer? Uncertainty. He says, uncertainty is what art does best, while conversely, certainty in art is tedious at best and usually threatens to be trivial. Gilbert Roth puts uncertainty at the very heart of the artistic enterprise. Richard Wilbur, as we have seen, takes us even further, pointing to our engagement with the unknown as central to our humanity. Which leads me to ask whether artists are not, in fact, especially suited to navigate the uncertain, the unmapped waters we find ourselves in today. I think, for example, of the choreographer, envisioning bodies in motion, imagining the images or feelings those bodies can inspire in the minds of the beholding audience, but unsure whether her collaborators, the dancers themselves, can translate that vision in her mind's eye to the stage and make intention legible to the audience. I think, too, of the ceramicist, orchestrating the complex chemistry of fire, clay, and glaze, but uncertain whether clay will crack and collapse or glaze will behave predictably, unable to predict whether the outcome will bear out his intention or give him some entirely new insight or fail utterly. In both cases, it is the gap between vision and execution, between collaborator and collaborator, between intention and expression, between hypothesis and experiment, a gap that we call the unknown. It is in that gap that discovery and invention lie. Indeed, it is the gap between the known and the not known in which art making resides. And it's that same beach that Richard Wilbur has Newton playing on with his stones and shells. And this brings me back to our present moment and to the role of the artist or creative person. The artist's embrace of uncertainty empowers him or her, and not only to make work that is profound, challenging, innovative, and unexpected. The embrace of uncertainty does not empower the artist only in the studio or on the stage, in the workshop or on the set. It also empowers him or her in the world. Now, I do not mean to suggest that the artist is a naif, impressed by the mystical, unknowable wonder of it all. The choreographer and the ceramicist are practiced professionals, hardened experimentalists, not dewy-eyed fantasists who embrace any outcome, no matter how disastrous. No, the artist is not deceived or seduced by the unknown. He or she, I say, is empowered by it, and that is something very different. The artist sees opportunity in uncertainty. The artist perceives a space that is not already understood or mapped or defined, not a vacuum in which anything is possible, but a place presently invisible and unvisited that can be named and shaped, if not perhaps fully known. I would say the artist in times like these is our truest, most reliable guide. What they themselves will invent will not necessarily lead us out of uncertainty, but their willingness to venture into the unknown helps us to conquer our fear of it. Our artists look ahead and tell us that the terrible things we fear can be made into something beautiful or useful or meaningful. They inhabit the serenity of Richard Wilbur's Newton, and the very best artists have the ability to transmit it to all of us. And so in parting, I wish our graduates today that serenity, a serenity born of the certainty that the unknown is inevitably there before us and around us, but that it holds for us in its depths of possibility and nothing to fear. Thank you.